The most damning thing currently happening for Mike Norvell is that other teams having bad seasons, not as bad as ours, obviously, but other teams, other programs having bad seasons, routinely take the field on Saturdays and fight their ass off. In a losing effort, they fight their ass off. Their players play fast. They trigger downhill. They come up and play physical. They clearly play with passion. They seem to care about one another. They're invested in what the coach is saying. There's clearly a cogent game plan of sorts. That's not what's happening here. And what that does, Tom, and this really pisses me off when I think about it, is it leaves the fans feeling fleeced. You feel as if Mike Norvell is fleecing this fan base because they just got a huge raise and an extension, and this team doesn't care, doesn't try, doesn't compete. And I look around and see sorry-ass teams all over the country fighting their ass off every Saturday. They're not going to a bowl. They're going to finish with a losing record. They're struggling mightily. And I sit down and I turn on the game and I go, still fighting, 10-10 in the third. Kid just made a hell of a play to force a punt. They're going to lose, but they care. And then they come to the sideline, the coach is slapping their helmet, and they're all excited, and they're 2-6. You don't see any of it here. None of it. It's the most damning thing about what's happened here. Losses would be first and foremost. Losses is where you'd say, well, what about the losses, Jeff? The losses are pretty damning. I got it. But I'm willing to accept that we're living in a crazy age of college football where really good can become really bad pretty quickly, and really bad can become pretty good pretty quickly too. But you better have in place standards that are met in terms of effort and game-to-game focus, competence, all of that. When we're routinely having to use timeouts because we don't have enough men on the field or we have too many on the field for something as simple as a field goal, then damn it, that's a bridge too far. That's where you get really angry. That's where you feel fleeced. It's ridiculous. And you look around. There are a ton of bad teams that I think, frankly, if we lined up with, it would be 7-7 in the fourth quarter because neither team's any good. But then I think, oh, no, it wouldn't, because they'd fight like hell to win that game, and we'd go through the motions and not tackle.
Say what you want about respecting the coaches or the assistant coaches with effort. That's all true, but it means they don't care about each other. That's where I have the problem.
They're checked out. They're completely checked out.
You got to give a damn about the guy who's on the field with you. If not, what's the point? You work as 11, and that's a cliche, but the number one place to look on offense, at least in our offense, is perimeter blocking. That's want to. That's finding somebody. That's trying. And it's the most easy place to look on the field and see when it doesn't happen. You go, oh, he doesn't give a damn. Like, he doesn't, because why? You're not getting the ball? You're not going to try? Like, what is it? What is behind your lack of effort to go help your teammate and help your team, and in turn help yourself make a play? Why not? Why even be on the field if you're not going to effort to do that? On defense, it's taking on a blocker so that your teammate can rally to the ball and make a play. Or if you're a safety or a defensive back of some kind, getting downhill to try and reduce the damage. Gain of 3 is a hell of a lot more manageable than a gain of 6. But if you're going to lollygag your way towards the football, it's 2nd and 4. And, either way, on third downs, we lose anyway. That's probably your attitude. But it's infuriating because you don't care for the other guy. And that gets people hurt. It already has this year. The moment that happened in Memphis when Jaylen Brown goes down, that's the one moment this year that anytime I think about it, I get mad. Because you don't care to try, you got somebody hurt. I can
only imagine what that does to a locker room and how quickly that becomes a referendum on you as a player, your teammates, this season, the coaching staff, the whole deal. It's not pretty. Again, I'm not saying anything that people don't already know, but the more I thought about what I'm about to go up and watch in South Bend this weekend, which is a lot like what we just watched against North Carolina this past weekend, I got angrier, and the more I thought about it, and then, of course, the announcement from Florida that Napier will be back, I thought, yeah, why not? They have fought their ass off, and they've had plenty of injuries, and they're not going to finish with a winning record. They're not even close. They're not going to a bowl. This will be their 4th consecutive losing season in Gainesville. They've had the misfortune of sucking for a prolonged period of time, not a singular year. Like this has been, here we go again for them in Gainesville for several seasons.
Right.
Now, normally I say that to chide. I'm not. I'm making the observation that in the midst of all of that, the avalanche effect to which I refer often, and there they are, fighting their ass off for that dude.
And for us, it was what, 2 games after BC within the scope of the 60 minutes of BC, and you're done?
Well, I think last week was the first week that they really packed it in. I think almost in mass. Now, there was evidence here and there where guys are doing what you're saying.
Well, there's a difference between flat and quitting, but when did we look on point offensively? First
No,
drive of the year?
No, we haven't looking buttoned up. Well, again, part of that is, again, they can't block anybody, so it never looks good. But not being able to block people is no excuse for wasted timeouts, not understanding down distance time, all that stuff.
The clock management in the first half of Georgia Tech. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. It got off to a bad start, and it just kept on happening.
Well, think about the snowball effect. Let's go back to some of those breakdowns and some of those discussions we had where it all started with schematically, there's no reason you should be doing this. There's no reason you should be standing here. There's no reason that for this assignment, you shouldn't touch anybody. Like, that's how it started. It wasn't, he's stronger than I am. It's, you don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
Or you're choosing not to go where you're supposed to go. Or you're dropping the football when you're wide open. Like, whatever. You could call them concentration issues, whatever they are. But it's not like the first game of the season we lost and we left it all out there on the field. I didn't feel that way in Dublin. I don't know if you did. But that actually was more on the defense. That first unit of the defensive line was awful. The second unit was a little bit more inspiring.
It was.
But it felt like the game when it was over. I don't know that we left it all out there.
If you were really making a strong case to cut your losses and do it now, well, that's where you would start it. You wouldn't start with the poor recruiting and, not holding your assistant coach's feet to the fire in recruiting. You wouldn't start the argument with the misevaluation of your roster, which isn't good. And you wouldn't start it with the poor evaluation of the portal players that you did take, which, again, not great. You wouldn't start it with that. You'd say they're not playing for him. They stopped playing for him. They're clearly not hearing him. They have tuned him out. That's where you'd start it.